It was still dark when the first knock came, for deliberate raps that stopped my breath. The digital clock read 5:02 a.m. I pulled a sweatshirt over my pajamas and opened the door to find my neighbor standing there, pale and shaking like a man who'd run half the city. His name was Marcus Hale. He'd lived next door for a year. Polite and quiet, the kind of neighbor you notice only when he isn't there to water the plants. That morning, he looked like someone who had been stripped down to panic. "Don't go to work today," he said. Trust me, I could have ignored him. 3 months earlier, my father had died suddenly. Doctors said stroke, but in the days before he'd been urgent, telling me in fragments that there were things I needed to know about our family. After he died, odd things started. A car that lingered near my house for hours, blocked calls, my sister asking if I'd noticed unfamiliar faces. The world had begun to feel like a place where threads were being pulled. I am Elena Ward. I'm 33, a financial analyst, someone who lived by routine and spreadsheets. Marcus's warning tugged at the loose edge of a life I'd thought straightforward. I texted my manager and stayed home. The hours crawled. By 11:30, I was almost ready to laugh at myself for listening to a neighbor's fear. Then the phone rang. An unknown number. The officer's voice was calm and clinical. "Ms. Ward, are you aware of a critical incident at your workplace this morning?" He told me there had been a violent attack. Footage showed my car at 8:02 a.m. My key card had been used. Employees reported seeing me on the 3rd floor. "Items belonging to you were recovered at the scene," he said. I told him I had been home. He asked if anyone could verify that. "I live alone." The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Someone had created a frame, cloned key cards, falsified footage, plates recorded, an identity sewn into a crime. My first thought was for my father and his half-whispered warnings. Marcus knocked again. "Open," he said. "They'll come to take you and make you the face of this." Marcus told me a story I would have rejected if it hadn't been handed to me with my father's handwriting inside. A black envelope from my father with a note saying that if I were reading it, his fears had come to pass. He had been investigating something dangerous, a covert biogenetics program aimed at identifying and exploiting rare human immune and regenerative traits. They called those people assets. My father had found proof, leaked pieces, and had been silenced. They made his death look natural, Marcus said. He was poisoned. He showed me a file on a tablet labeled Subject 7B, Genomic Asset, Priority High. Gene charts, blood markers, notes on immunity. Reading it felt like watching your own life reduced to clinical shorthand. Unmarked cars were circling my block. We left in Marcus's SUV. The bunker my father had prepared lay under an overgrown hill, its steel doors sleeping beneath moss. The lock recognized my DNA. The vault's mechanism felt personal, as if it remembered the shape of my hand. Inside, my father's journal lay on a pedestal. He had cataloged ledger trails, shell corporations, clinical samples logged where they should not have been. He wrote plainly, "You were never an accident. You were proof that natural immunity had taken an unpredictable turn." He left me a choice: surrender and be collected as an asset, or release everything to the world and become a target. That terminal presented 2 options: acquisition or revelation. Marcus didn't push. He trusted you. He said that I chose revelation. Files streamed outward through channels my father had prepared, secure feeds, friendly journalist Dropbox, encrypted mirrors. The bunker shuddered when the first data packets left. Outside, I heard the distant thud of helicopters as searchlights began to scratch the tree line. There was a fierce, almost holy clarity in pressing the key. It felt like cutting a ribbon on a life I had not known belonged to me. The initial leaks were trickles, names, transactions, a memo here and there, then a widening flood. An independent reporter called. Editors asked for verification. I felt strangely detached as pieces of my private history became public documents. But with each confirmed ledger entry, the architecture of concealment cracked that we did not have a hero's roadmap. Instead, we worked like accountants on a conspiracy: follow the money, trace transfers, corroborate notes. Safe houses became routine. Marcus taught me to sleep in short bursts, to move chargers between outlets, to switch phones and email handles. Each small operational detail mattered. Once, in a motel, a woman in the next room lingered with questions about financial models. Marcus created a harmless decoy, and the tale moved on. Small victories mattered. Allies emerged in odd places, an auditor who'd once flagged an obscure foundation, a scientist who'd seen research misattributed, a journalist who'd been burned by official narratives. We mirrored files across servers in different countries. We fed proof to outlets with staggered timestamps. The effort felt both tactical and moral, a way to make truth resilient. The cost was real. My name showed up on headlines as both whistleblower and dangerous anomaly. Friends pulled away. An ally was quietly moved abroad with a note claiming for your safety, and then cut off. Marcus bore scars for reasons he barely explained. Nights were full of the ache of loss. The journal smelled of my father's cologne and old ink. A small human geography of someone I loved that I remember one close call vividly. A red sedan that followed us for blocks until Marcus angled into an alley and staged a roadside breakdown, so the tail slowed and kept distance. My heart pounded like a fist against my ribs while we waited, engines idling and breath visible in the cold, listening to the radio for any sign that the narrative had shifted. When we drove away, a small chorus of relief moved through me. Relief shaded with the knowledge that we were never fully safe. AS documents were verified. Investigators began to ask questions. Audits were opened. Subpoenas followed. The people who had once wielded secrecy began to stumble. Their denials grew thinner against published records of transfers and internal memos. The public shifted from disbelief to curiosity, then pressure. Congressional hearings were called. Resignations, quiet and hurried, followed. This was not a tidy victory. There were betrayals. Anonymity peeled away. Allies vanished. Evidence vanished in one place only to reappear through another channel. The machines of power adapt. But truth is a corrosive force, and the more it leaked, the harder it became to reseal. Through it all, I carried my father's journal like a relic. He had written, calmly and precisely, both his grief and his hope. He had left maps, literal and ledgered, that connected donors to labs, clinics to shell companies. He believed the truth could be gathered into a ledger, and that ledgers could be shown to those who had the power to act. There were the times I wanted to give up. Exhaustion carved hollows under my eyes. The helicopters still crossed the sky, sometimes like persistent vultures. But on nights when surrender seemed reasonable, I reread my father's last instruction: do not surrender yourself. It was not a command, but a trust he placed in me, to choose who I would become. Gradually, as the leaks accumulated, viewers and readers began to demand accountability. Town halls filled. A scientist testified before a committee. People who had assumed immunity felt pressure. It was slow, messy, and ultimately human, a ledger of names matched to faces. Paperwork that you could not simply wish away. Looking back, the knock at 5:02 a.m. is less the moment of terror than the hinge that swung my life into a different orientation. The days since have been a ledger of small actions and rare confirmations, accounts traced, names exposed, a slow, grinding shift toward accountability. I am no longer only a woman with spreadsheets. I am someone who carries the truth my father died protecting. Truth made me a target. It also made me dangerous to the lies. And once you choose to expose a lie, you cannot unchoose the shape of the life that follows. Restless, purposeful, and painfully human. The ordinary life I once had is gone, but in its place is a life my father trusted me to live. Messy, perilous, and incandescent with the possibility that what he died to reveal will finally see the light.